our Praxis project. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Katie.
We did a house meeting with Coloradans for the Common Good and JESPA, the union that we are interning with. So our initial Praxis plan was to hold an issue identification and leadership development meeting for service workers. We were trying to plan an action escalating issues at the executive director of food and nutrition services for the district because she's kind of corrupt and has a reputation for being really power hungry and choosing favorites. So we thought like identifying a concrete, winnable, deeply felt issue would be a good prerequisite for planning an action, a direct action, and then realized we were wrong because the issue originally presented of a couple of food service workers complained about not being allowed to wear shorts in hot kitchens, but it turns out it wasn't a widely, deeply felt issue. So we moved on to a new plan of a house meeting.
Yeah, so like Sarah was saying, our new plan was a house meeting with JESPA members, staff, and other strategic allies, community partners. Coloradans for the Common Good is a big partner with JESPA. So a house meeting is an informal phase where we get to know each other on a deeper level. And then through that discussion, we're able to take an action and make an action plan of what the issues were presented. So this is a really useful tool in organizing, and Sarah and I have never been exposed to this before. So that was challenging, but also a lot of fun.
So here's a little description of the event. You probably recognize this from the labor notes book. Uh, so 11 people turned out, which was roughly what we expected. The purpose of the event was to identify commonly shared interests, goals, and develop ideas for an action. We hoped that in this meeting we would agitate and activate disengaged individuals and elevate them to activist or ideally core, but it's a little bit of a leap. Um, and so planning the meeting involved identifying target members to attend, developing an agenda, doing outreach and turnout. And then we both co-facilitated the meeting alongside Alize, and she's the director of organizing and I think it's communication at JESPA.
Yeah, so this is the just a little screenshot of the spreadsheet Sarah and I shared, just to kind of get a plan of who we wanted to be at this meeting, and then when we called them, who called, and sub association, answer and follow up. So the follow up was incredibly hard in this. There's really no magic to this, but we did our best, and Sarah got one of her maybes to come. So that was really awesome.
So this is a little screenshot from the actual meeting. Um, it was JESPA and Coloradans for Common Good staff and members, just a handful of us. And there's a little quote from one of CCG's organizers, Brock. He said, "We need to find people who are angry about these issues and want to do something about it. Historically, solutions to these issues have been found when faith-based organizations and labor movement organizations work together." During the meeting, Alize posed a few questions to everyone, and we all took turns reading them or answering them. She asked, "What is a pressure that you or your family is experiencing working in Jeffco? And if we build a broad-based organization in Jefferson County made up of various types of workers, individuals, and organizations, what could it work on that would actually make a difference in your life?" So a lot of individuals mentioned high burnout rate, lack of livable wage, and lack of affordable housing in Jeffco, which all seems like a negative feedback loop, um, where each issue reinforces the other.
Yeah, and then here are some highlights from our just kind of our thoughts about the house meeting in general and just the event in general. From Stir It Up, the book that we've been reading, groups get together in collaboration for three common reasons: to take action, provide public education, and exchange to share best practices. And we were able to witness that in the house meeting. Like I said before, it was incredibly challenging because it was new, but it was also exciting because it was new. And then we came together and arrived at a collective self-interest, needing a livable wage to keep up with that increased cost of living and mitigate the high burnout rates. Those were the pressures. A lot of the individuals at the house meeting kind of collectively came together and said, yes, I experience and I'm affected by these issues every day of my life. And then we also know it's a reality. Working class people in Jefferson County across the district feel those pressures as well.
So as a result of the meeting, like we mentioned, a widely, deeply felt issue was identified. People shared powerful stories. So there was really a sense of solidarity and community established. We are having a second follow-up meeting, and everyone was assigned with bringing at least two people from their community next month. So hopefully we'll double the or triple the amount of people there. And next meeting, we hope to start developing an agenda for how to take action towards this issue. So my reflection, the planned goals or outcomes achieved was identifying an issue, planning a second house meeting, building that community and solidarity. The single mom shared her story and was getting really emotional. It was pretty powerful. And most important takeaways, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think going into the meeting, I was unclear about how Coloradans for Common Good, like mostly their mission and their vision. Their website's a little broad and vague. And also, I just like honestly had this stereotype about faith-based groups based on growing up in Colorado Springs. There were like some very far right um, faith-based groups there, and I just always thought that they were not very union, very labor friendly. So one of the takeaways is that they're actually very compatible and can accomplish good things together and be good allies. And then I think the hardest thing for me was identifying targets just because I didn't ask enough questions when we were planning the meeting. And so I didn't really know who would be a good like person to come and share their story at first. It was kind of hard to figure that out. And as a result, I didn't reach out to very many people. I was just kind of doubting myself a lot. So doing more outreach and turnout for the next meeting, and then being sure that I have a clear understanding. Rinku Sen talks about the importance of everyone having like a clear, direct self-interest and verbalizing that from the beginning in order to have an effective alliance.
Yeah, so under my playing goals, I kind of talked more about on a personal level how I wanted to be really active and present in the moment because I've mentioned before this is a side of organizing that we've never experienced before, and I honestly just didn't know what to expect. Um, and I recognize the negative feedback loop where an issue contributes and feeds off another, but then I was able to reflect on how that is really powerful. And I'm able to use that in my one on ones and just my daily task working with the union. What did I fall short on? So none of my maybes showed up to the house meeting. I did do follow up and outreach until like 2 hours before the meeting started. It's just incredibly hard to get individuals to jump from being that disengaged circle to the activist and core circle. The hardest part for me was listening to these powerful but disheartening stories, and then just having to leave that. I know in class, Daniel mentioned about the beginning, your interns don't make it harder. There is a privilege of walking away, and you should recognize that. And that's part of my story of self, of how I'm formulating that, and I struggle with that reality that I am able to walk away. Um, and then the most important takeaway was it amazes me how different community organizations in Jeffco can set aside their differences, their different missions, their different values, but then come together for a common goal, which is to help each other and help their communities. I've witnessed this, but not every community organization and community outreach has that. And Jefferson County is really lucky to have that. And Sarah and I are lucky to experience that and witness that as well.
And these are our references. That's the presentation.
Yay!